Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another stream from Delenn Russell. This morning in Whatever Wednesday, we are playing Planet Zoo. And decided going to start a new zoo and check out some of the last couple of packs that I haven't had a chance to look at. So we've had the North American animal theme pack come out, as well as the European animal theme pack. So let's just get started here. You can see this is my avatar. Nothing super exciting about that. They're short. Well, tall, goofy looking, I guess you could say. And we'll get rolling. All right. So I figured I'd start with a franchise zoo. I had not finished the career path yet, but it does not take into account the new packs when you add them on, unless there's a scenario involved, which the new packs did not add. So let's go on in and create ourselves a franchise. Alright, so for a new zoo, let's see, 100 points. Well, let's just start with the stress release 300. That's what we've got. Our zoo's 1. Okay. Actually, let's see, do we really want a franchise? Sure, why not? Woo. Doesn't take a so let's head on to North America. And we'll restart the zoo and see what we can come up with. Good morning, PP Zerk. Welcome on in. Glad to see you aboard. Hopefully you're having an okay day. Please do let me know if we get background sound bleed. Give me a bit of a test this morning just to see if I could get away without putting earbuds in. But may work, may not. It's hard to say. Okay, so when one starts a zoo from scratch... good morning, Dub Dynamite. Welcome to see you. Welcome to see you. Good morning. Apparently I didn't have enough coffee, but that's alright. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, it says, I need a keeper hut. Because the only thing that it gives me when I first start my zoo is actually the gates. So this is where visitors are going to spawn from. Come in from scratch. We don't have much for terrain. It's pretty flat. So this is my first franchise zoo, so they don't give you a whole lot of stuff ready to rock. But you can see we've got places to go and things to do. So I'm going to start with a couple of paths here and see if we can get rolling. So there's a couple of different types of paths when you start at your zoo. They've got the generic that just say path, and then they have staff paths. And the difference between the two, aside from the appearance, is that staff paths are marked with the game logo, and that the regular visitors are not able to go on those staff paths. So it's a neat way for your keepers to get places behind the scenes without having the public there. Some parts of the game require you to have a staff path, and some parts do not. Features such as gates to animal enclosures and so forth need to have at minimum a staff way of getting there. So just got a starter path here. I'm going to switch over to the staff pathing style. I do tend to like to try and blend the staff paths in the neighborhood so that we don't have to see it. So if we've got a green tint to work with instead of a gray one, that might work a little better. It's about 6 of one, half dozen of the other, actually, in terms of color. All right, so I'm in North America, which is I might as well start with the North American animals once we get going. But it did say that we need to have some keeper huts to start with. And we're going to need a few other places too, like adoption centers and so forth. Let's see what we've got here. It's complaining. Need a workshop, a vet surgery, a trade center, staff room, a research center, quarantine, and a keeper hut. So the two biggest ones I'm going to need to start with is definitely a trade center so I can adopt animals, a staff room for the staff to chill out. Those are probably some big ones, and of course a quarantine center when I bring animals in from the trade center. So, oops, let's start with my construction facilities. There we go. And do it this morning. So staff facilities, and I am going to need a trade center. I'm going to probably try and start with the pre-boxed ones just because, provided that my funding can handle it, then it's a little easier to get things started right from square one. Now, these buildings do have a negative impact on the guests and their opinion of the place. So I like to try and start them near the front gate just to get them out of the road, but at the same time I can't have them too close to the front gate because the guests stress out and don't like it. So let's see if I can get one here. That in there. Let's see, what else will it let me add? Shop, quarantine, let's see what we can get. Quarantine big. You're pretty big. Let's see what we got. Turn it around. I don't know why, but the game almost always seems to give me the rooms backwards, meaning that that the back of it is usually facing towards the camera when I first grab them. And that's a little frustrating sometimes just because they are difficult to place. But if I want to, let's see, let's rotate my count. So let's click this down here and check that. Okay, it's not today. Here's my view. There we go. Rotate this one around. I haven't played this game for a couple of months, so I'm a little bit rusty on the controls, but hopefully we'll get rolling again fairly quickly. Come on, quarantine. Now, you don't actually have to quarantine all the animals when you first start, but if you don't, they can have a tendency to come in with diseases. So that's a little bit tacky. Pardon me. Yeah. So they can come in a little tacky, sorry. They can come in a little bit diseased or stressed to start with, and that's never a good place to start your game. Okay, so we need a bit more path, because it just didn't take on all the places we need. I'll get down a few more facilities. We do need a, let's see what we've got. Trade center. Let's probably a workshop next to, actually, a vet surgery next to the quarantine and convenient spacing. Pretty big. Oops. There we go. Yeah, I get two directions. I can readjust if I really want to. But this is more of a quick, dirty place. We've got the quarantine, we've got trade center, we've got a vet surgery. Let's go with a workshop. Thankfully these ones are a little smaller. There we go. Doing. Looks like the franchise game is going to make me have to wait to unlock cool settings for these things, but there are some neat ones that are usually offered. We don't have any of that turned on right now, but you can get some that have preset buildings. I'm just going to see if I have any blueprints ready to go. Let's see. Prefab, so we got going. Okay, so we don't have any North American prefabs unlocked, which is kind of frustrating. But we'll get there eventually. So back to the facilities. Okay, so we've got workshop. Let's head in and get ourselves keeper hut. Now what keeper hut's for is pretty standard when you're at a zoo. That's where they go to prepare all the food for the animals. So and the keeper huts in here, the small ones tend to have only room for one keeper at a time, whereas the larger ones that we could unlock a little bit later, they tend to have room for two. I can't remember if it's 2 or 4 keepers in at once. So that helps a little bit in terms of space. Staff rooms are the same sort of deal. They're fairly small as well. The persons, I believe they hold 4 people. And once again, they're always backwards. I never did quite figure out why they do that. Now, these look kind of unexciting from the outside, but I'll give you a quick tour inside so we can get this one locked in, which might help if I switch it around. The dotted lines you're seeing on the outside here, let's just clear this for a sec. These dotted lines here are the borders of the build. So if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see that we've got lines here, and then they go quite a ways. And there actually is a great big square that is your limits of where you can build. And so it's actually a lot of space in most zoos. Sometimes when you're running into one of the scenarios, they have a couple of them where they're intentionally very, very small spaces to work with. And the reason for that, of course, makes everything much more difficult in the challenges. Good morning, Creep. Welcome aboard. Glad to see you. I hope it's a nice sunny day where you are. It has taken a temporary drop where we are, temperature-wise. So I'd rather be here right now than outside. We've got, if you're talking in Celsius, we've got about a -15 to -20, but actually more closer to -30 by the time you count for the wind chill this morning. So what else am I missing? A research center, okay. So once again, research centers are small to start with, but they will get bigger. And I'm using, as I mentioned earlier, I'm using the pre-boxed ones, pre-boxed units here. And the reason for that is because, I'm just going to show you here. So they do give you a shell, a little tiny like this sort of deal. And we can actually go inside them, but they do give you a shell, which works well with the prefabs. Let's close this up. So if you actually have a prefab that you like, say for example, we've got a shop with a bee thing in there, but if we had, do you have an empty shell? Let's see one here. Okay, and this one doesn't appear to be unlocked, but you can actually get themed looking shells and then put your shop of your choice or building of your choice inside that. Or there's a construction tab here, and we can actually build pieces from scratch. So if we do architecture, we've got all kinds of roofs and flooring. So we've got walls. I mean, I can build something from scratch. Let's see. There's a wall, so we can actually build something from scratch if we wanted to. But when I first start a zoo, and particularly when I'm interested in looking at the animals, I usually try to go with the prefabs, just because we can get ourselves rolling a little bit quicker. All right. Yeah. I've noted that coastal areas never really seem to quite get that cold, but there is an exception. If you live on places like, I mean, we talk about there's Alaska for the US, or the east coast of Canada, strangely enough, there are plenty of jokes about it, but there's also plenty of pictures where they really do get, 10, 15 feet of snow, and sometimes have to actually, dig themselves out to be able to literally get out of their houses. Sometimes they end up with snow warnings, and when they get a blizzard, it's a big deal. There we go. It's a pretty big deal for them to be able to have that sort of snow, because then they have to dig out. Alright, okay, let's see what... We don't seem to have any concerns. Oh, challenges. They give me challenges. So zoo challenges are basically like goals you can hit, and often there'll be a bonus at the bottom. So this one, if I was to adopt and place 2 different species, then I gain an extra $1,000 to my budget. And then if I have a drink shop and it manages to make $500 from drinks, then I can get another $500 bonus to my budget, which you'll see down in the bottom left corner here. The amount beside it, these are conservation credits, and it gives you a list of things you can do. Conservation credits are another form of currency. So if you're breeding animals and releasing them to the wild, then you can actually earn conservation credits. Also things educating the public on elements that can help. So, or elements that can help the planet, I guess. The game is kind of interesting because they've made an effort. Frontier put in the effort to try and get, trying to get things fairly accurate, not just the way the animals look and behave, but also in terms of signage. They do have fairly accurate habitat signage, and they do have, fairly accurate lessons, I guess you could say, that people can learn. Good morning, Alex. Hopefully everything's doing well for you. So I've paused the game. When you hit the timer, of course, it goes ahead and things start counting. The clocks here are just all in-game clocks, so it's not actually referencing the real time here at all. And the temperatures are completely useless. It's funny, you'll see it say like 35 degrees Celsius and start snowing in the game. It's kind of silly how that works out. So we've got a big space today. Let's just see what the Animal Trade Center has for us this morning. Come on, market. So we can sort alphabetically. We've got aardvarks and African buffalo. How many pages do we have today? Oh, we'll be here for a while. Elephants. I guess things we want elephants. The penguins, African wild. Okay, well, we could be here all day, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to filter them by species. Actually, they have a feature in here they call the Zoopedia, which gives you facts and figures on animals. So you can also filter them by where you want them. So for example, if I was to look at the new North America pack, for example, I can click that one, and it'll bring up just the North American animals. And it's got alligators, bison, bullfrogs, foxes, Arctic bulls are cool, black-tailed prairie dogs, boa constrictors. So we've got quite a lot. Now being spotted the spiders. I mean, they even do have the reindeer. It is odd because I don't know why they bother calling it that. That's not quite what we call them up in Canada, but that's okay. But actually, I just picked up this morning the European pack, so I'm going to switch over to that one. It's a little bit less familiar to me. And some of the animals do live in Europe, in North America and Europe. Okay, any type, any content, conservation status. So these aren't just the ones from the new European pack, but these are some of the ones that live in the European area. So we've got, I believe the Eurasian lynx is one of the new ones. The badgers are always kind of fun. And every time my kids pop in and they see this one, they start singing the badger meme that was going around, and I usually have to get them to go away. I mean, they do the same sort of thing when I'm playing Minecraft. If I'm collecting mushrooms, they'll actually start saying badger mushroom thing. So I get a little tired of that from them, but it is cute from an 8-year-old and 10-year-old. Okay, so once you've picked an animal, I think it's actually kind of fun to put in, let's see, badgers. Okay, so when you're looking at the page, there's actually a bunch of just generic information about them, and it's the same sort of thing you'd read on a public zoo sign. Creative, it definitely does seem like it might be your type of game, and I'd be really curious to see where your head was at in terms of where to start. So if you click on the natural habitat button, you actually find a lot of information that would be useful. So for example, it tells you about how much your minimum habitat space requirements are, and how much climbing they need. This is their water. So how many, if you've got an animal that swims, whether it be shallow or deep, they tell you that, how deep the water needs to be. There's a particular area, and what their preferred temperature requirement is. And this one is helping with building your pens because it says the boundary requirement, and it gives you the height. There are two types of animals or two types of creatures, I'd say, in Planet Zoo. They have the habitat animals, which we often think of as the big ones, the large species. But then they also have what they call exhibit animals. So there'd be things like your lizards, iguanas, beetles, snakes, frogs, in a lot of cases, that sort of critter. So those would go in exhibits, and they count differently towards your challenges. If we head on over to the species data tab, it looks a little bit like a bib. I suppose it's supposed to be a bib, talking about bees and so forth. When they tell you a couple things you need to know is the group size, 1 to 2, and they say up to 1 male, up to 1 female. So they can live solo, for this particular lynx, but you don't want a group of more than 2, and the game will actually get upset if that's the case. So you can actually have them 1, but then if it's females only, then you can actually have up to 3. So usually I try to go for matched pairs just because then I can breed them and it doesn't count the youth. But then when I start getting the warnings that there's another adult there and they could be some fighting, that's when I pick up the youth and ship them out. So that usually tells me that I need up to 2. So I head back to the natural habitat tab, and if I put up, whoops, we got 2 adults in here, then it will automatically calculate below that 615 has switched for 2 adults. It needs 780 square meters of space. So while we're here, so the interspecies enrichment you don't see very often, but that's one for if I was to pick something more like a giraffe, for example. So if I was to look up the giraffe, then there we go, Asia. No, not Asia. Shake your head there, Dylan. I'm tired. Okay. All right. Down in the R's. There we go, reticulated. I can never spell that word, but I want it. If you take a look at the draft, they tell you that they're endangered. But if you go to interspecies enrichment, what this means is that they can actually share a pen with any of these other species and actually get a bonus from it. So one of the things that I like to do, as well as a lot of other players, is when it comes down to putting something like a giraffe, we'll make a very large pen with a lot of field space in it, and then we'll put in quite a number of other different species. But one of the other things that we have to worry about, aside from just the pen size, is when you take a look at requirements for things such as water, your zoo also needs to have the equipment to purify the water and make sure it's clean. So I've had a couple of times where we got a semi-island property, and unfortunately they didn't have enough maintenance going on to keep their water purification systems clean, and the elephants got sick. So the research status, when they talk about that research, it means when you use the, what do you call it? The research facility, I guess, for lack of a better term, then you can actually learn more about your animals. So you can learn more about what they eat. You can learn about habitat enrichments, so things they like to play with and keep them interested, or food enrichments, and often that's better quality food or toys they can play with that have food elements to them. For example, the lynx, if I'm back up to that one, there we go. So under research, so it's got a lot of different things they can play with. And then under the food enrichments, there's probably be things they can use to amuse themselves food-wise or learn from. There might be a scent marker you can put on the ground, or there might be, I'm going to bet that most likely they're probably going to have us working on things like as gross as it is, a frozen blood-filled pumpkin, because that's one of the ones that the big cats usually tend to like. So let's get ourselves rolling here. We've got 780 meters space of land requirement. We need a grade 3 climb-proof fence, because of course you don't want the lynx running off. And you need at least 10 feet high, because they can climb. Now we have a couple of options in terms of what to handle, what to do with this one. Let's just see, animal breeding, actually, they don't have the lynx involved, and that's just silly for me to put that one in. Lynx, are you there, Jay? Yes, we do have some. Excellent. So we'll see a couple of colors here. When we're ready to adopt them, we can either adopt them for cash, as per the brown tag, and a little bit of a warning, because when it's adopted for cash, you see that you cannot actually release that one to the wild. So you can have it as a zoo pet or breeding species, but it actually can't be chosen as a release one. The conservation credit ones can be released to the wild, but of course it's green when you can afford it and red when you don't have enough. The color coding of little tags we've got beside them, saying how interesting they are, that's really what it boils down to. So although the 3 dots would make sense to be more interesting, it's actually less. Those are the bronze grade ones. We've got silver grade ones here, and we've got gold grade ones. I'm not quite sure why we have a 4th category with just a blank tag. Those are probably the ones that don't have a whole lot of danger factor. So we can sort by all sorts of things. And we can sort by their size, their age, their appeal, or we can sort them by price. So we've got a lot of flexibility in what we can do here. One of the interesting things about them, they do age out in this game, and they also do perish. So that's not exactly high on anybody's list for having dead animals. But they allow us to have monuments to some of our favorite ones, and I'm not really sure if I'm going to be taking advantage of that in this particular playthrough. So let's get a move on here. We talked about barriers that had to be grade 3, I believe it was. Did I miss that? Come on, Zupedia. Yeah, grade 3. So for barriers, when we take a look at the walls, we've got a null barrier. It's actually used when you've got scenery, like such as mountains or cliffs or something that you know the creature cannot bypass. Then you can just use a null barrier to close off that portion of the pen for completion reasons, I guess. The game insists on you actually having a full loop to qualify as a proper pen. So we've got glass. Oh, I'm actually quite surprised they let us have glass this early. So frequently they won't. If I was to choose something, for example, such as, I could even go with, well, chain link's grade 2, that's not going to help us. But if I was to go with something, say, for example, grade 3, but wood logs is definitely climbable. Yet, on the other hand, if I was to come down to this side on the right here and switch over to the settings element of it, we can actually change it to climb proof on left or right. What it actually does is it puts a little lip on the top of the fence so that the animal could not climb out. The reality doesn't work in that one, but the image is there, and the idea is there. I'll give them credit for that, but it's definitely not something that will be realistic. So I'm going to go with the glass. Now, in later, if you do research, you can actually get more types of barriers to work with. Everything from looking different through to things such as this glass is transparent on both sides, but frequently animals will stress out and freak out if they have too much visibility and they feel that they can't get away from other people. So you can put in structures to help them have hiding space, but also if you research the barriers, you can actually get one-way glass, which is one of my favorites. And the reason I like that one a lot better is just that then the animals can think that you're not watching them, of course, but you really are. Now, one of the features that you find, I can't remember usually whether it's on this tab or this tab, I believe. Oh, there we go. Down here is you have the options for windows. Now, I've switched to the red brick barrier. As ugly as that is, it's got a higher resistance grade, so it will wear out faster according to the dilapidation rate. But it is not climbable. It is watertight, and it has a higher overall resistance, meaning that the animals can't push it down to get out. But it's opaque, we can't see through it. However, if you add the glass and add a window, then when we build it, it'll actually have windows built in. So let's see if we just start right up at the front. Actually, we save that area for shops. So what do we got? Zoom out. Alright, so let's build something today. Go this way. 2 meter sections, so we can probably go a little bigger. They're 10 meters. So you can see they've got a bit of a hole in them, and that's actually where the glass is. So we only need about 750, but they're always fun to watch. So let's get them a little bigger. I'm not a whole lot I'm not a whole lot of experience with terraforming, so we probably won't do a whole lot of terraforming in this playthrough unless it really suits the animal. For example, if we were to put in, say, beavers or something. Oh. Okay, apparently there's no snow in wherever Neon is. Discord overlays. Mental note, turn them off. Okay. So you can see that as I got outside the dotted lines, it went red. So anytime that I can't build a barrier, the piece that I'm trying to put down will go from blue to red. And I'm pretty sure the links are probably going to tell me they don't like those trees. But let's just see what we got going. Alright. When you get to the end, you can usually link up and just click off. Now this will be considered a complete habitat, but it does not count as a ready-to-go place until you got a gate put in. They're all the same price, so let's go with cat. Why not? It really doesn't matter. There's no strength difference to the various gates. Those are actually more image differences. I'm going to need a path to get in here, so I may have to place that first. We'll see. Because there's a little piece of staff path hanging off there, which means that it prevents the guests from going into the enclosure. There we go. Okay, so now we need a staff path. Let's go through. Now, when it comes to putting things into enclosures, I like the staff paths as narrow as the game will allow me. In most cases, if I'm having a zone where there's going to be buildings for them, then I'll make it a little bit bigger. But if it's hiding and running into an enclosure, then I usually try to make that path small so that the staff don't impact the scenery as much as possible anyways. Come on, color tone. Thank you. Okay, now, animals of course have needs. So we're going to need to put in habitat, of course. They're going to need somewhere to start with the food and water. And we're going to search by the links to see what they can actually have. So we'll filter off. And I like to, when I've got the funds for it, I like to stick in a water pipe because that means that the staff don't have to come in and refill it. When it is a tray, the game has the brains to decide that you can have your animals get thirsty simply because there isn't enough water for them. Although they're cheaper, the bowls definitely need a lot more monitoring and maintenance than the water pipes do. Okay, so that's feeding station, water station, feeding stations. Let's see, water bowl. Okay, we don't need a whole lot of space because we've only got 2. So I'm taking a small food tray. Where else are we now? Okay, so we don't know anything much for the lynx yet, but they can climb. I believe. Yeah. So they can climb, and but as far as toys go, or food enrichment, we haven't done any research yet, so we wouldn't have anything to throw in there for them. Heaters and coolers, I don't believe we'll need at this point in time, but we'll have to check and see because I'm not sure how cold this area is going to get. Coolers are great if you have, say, penguins or Arctic fox or something that really does not like the heat. And then, of course, same for the heaters. And that's so, you've got African savanna, but you're stuck in North America, you probably going to need heaters just to make sure that your animals have enough warmth. So beds and shelters are kind of handy, because shelters are some of the prefab ones. Once again, I can build one from scratch, but for the purposes of just being able to get the things rolling and actually see the animals, I'm probably going to stick with just a basic shelter for the 2 animals. And I'll start with one and then see whether or not that actually ends up suiting the needs of the animal. The game will actually tell us, and when we get an animal in here, I'll show you what their needs charts look like. Alrighty. Okay, so we've got that, and it doesn't really matter what kind of bedding. Let's go with medium. Medium. Oh, it's hard fit. Same price, so why not? Yeah, sure. Oops. Got to get this one in. Go. Okay. So we've got food, water, and shelter, which of course is what you basically need. So I'm going to head over here and hit the animal trading. See if we can pick up a couple of those links. I'm going to sort by and see, okay, at least a people. Ooh. Okay, well, they're showing us. The filters going down. Usually the metal rated ones are the better quality ones. Let's see. Let's stick with just males for now. They do come pre-named, but we can name them whatever we want. Because, I mean, we got Peter, we've got 18,000, but we want to get more out into it. Let's take a quick look. You can see on the age section, there's both an age number and a bit of a meter. In the top right corner, you'll see that's a zone that would be a youth, or, you know, child, and then like pup, etc. And then in the bottom section is all their adult period, where they will be fertile. And then when they hit the top left section, that's basically when they're the equivalent of a senior and they're no longer fertile. So I'm going to try and start with a young Alexander and see. Oh, no. So he's got some immunity issues, and that's not one that we can simply take to the medical center and help him out with. It means that he's more likely to get sick, so don't have a whole lot of choice in that respect. It looks like Peter's got the same problem. What else have we got here? Igor, how are you looking? Igor looks good. He looks like he may actually kick the bucket a little bit sooner, even though he's a little younger. So we got A. He's definitely undersized. That's not a huge problem. Let's go with this one. Immunity, but not as fertile. Okay. You know, I think I like. Oh, I'm looking because I can't afford him. Let's see. Let's go with Alexander. It's a good place to start. And so, of our 300 points for environmental, we will adopt Alexander, and he goes into waiting in the quarantine. It's a storage. You can actually put animals in storage, and there are a couple of tricks that people use. So that when an animal starts to get old, but you still need them to count towards one of your goals, for example, people will often stick them in the quarantine because it freezes their aging, so that they don't pass away, I guess you could say. Now we need a female. Switch over here. We can get ourselves a female. We don't have one. She's expensive and doesn't last very long. Okay, well, let's start with just one. You'll see that there's a timer here, and that is just for this particular animal, how long they'll be on the animal market. Once we get the game rolling again, those timers do count down, which means that if you find there's an animal you really like and you want to save it for later, you actually timer down in the corner here. Forgot about it. That they've changed that the animal market now does refresh. So if you find an animal you like, you may need to be aware to snap it up quickly, and then when it gets into the animal storage, then it's yours. You've got it. So I will take this one, and I'm going to send it to the zoo. But we're going to head straight to the destination. Oh, how can you not know? Oh, let's try and hit go. See if it recognizes. Okay, pause again. No path to the destination. Why not? Why not? Why not? Okay. Where is... should be a path to the destination right here. Come on, man. We've got zoo pass, we've got guest pass. Can't win them all some days. Let's try again. Okay, I'm sorry. I will send the zoo. There we go. Alright, so he's scheduled to be delivered to the quarantine. So they're relocating that into the quarantine. And I'm just going to click on it anyways. And... oh, no, it's not giving me the information yet. Okay. So... as soon as we get them into the main pen, I'll freeze the game again, and we'll see what needs they have. While we are waiting, let's see what the quarantine got. He's small. Okay, so doesn't have the animal in there yet. Probably because I need to hire some staff. Zoo. Can't do anything without any staff. Yep, I've got no staff. That's not going to help. So let's pause it again, and I'm going to hire a keeper. And I'll hire, let's see, we need... It's important. I need a vet. I hope if I actually click on the zoo. Try it again with the keeper. Oh, I definitely will screen this entry for now because I want to play with some very different animals. So I'm still getting on Steam. It does come on sale relatively frequently, and in the last year they've released, I believe, at least 3 expansion packs with various animals. And every time they do that, they also upgrade their mass collection to include the animals, or the new packs. But of course, at the moment, in Canadian dollars at least, it's over 100 for everything. But the base game usually is fairly inexpensive. So let's see, we had keeper mechanic. That's the mechanic I forgot to put in. They will land in the games when I hit go again. What we got? Keeper mechanic. Anybody else? Caretaker. Yes. Zoom. What else do you need? You want to skip vendors to start with. No need for security. You usually need an educator. Okay. So let's try this again. And see if we can get this stuff. There we are. Alright. You can see this. You can actually follow them close up. And there goes the mechanic. We're going to mechanic. There's nothing to do at the moment. Okay, that's fine. So we saw keep walking by the box. That is actually going to be our animal. He is there is Alexander's in the inside. Now we can actually take a look in here. This is kind of cool, I think. Oh, excuse me, just one second. Sorry about that. I had to remember to hydrate. Just still fighting off that cold I keep mentioning. So this one doesn't look all that exciting at the moment. Let's see. Yeah. So this one isn't great, but some of the units you can actually see inside, and they look sort of interesting. Like, for example, here's your veterinary surgery, and you can see there's stuff on the wall, and you can follow people in here, follow animals in here. It looks kind of neat when you do. Which do we have here? We've got the mechanic shop. They have all kinds of blueprints and tools they can use and so forth. And then if we go next door, we've probably got... So this would be the keeper hut. You can see they've got foods that they can serve the animals and things they can cut up. And the characters don't actually interact with the space, unfortunately. It is just a static look, but it is kind of nice to have everything decorated that you could actually have a quick look in. This would be the veterinary research facility. You can see they've got the computers and stuff. I don't know if it actually turns on. I've never bothered to look. And then we've got... I'm trying to see if there's anything else we missed. That was interesting to see inside. Oh yeah, in the staff room. So in the staff room, when you have a look inside, they've got like couches and there's a TV. All kinds of... So I mean, honestly, it's kind of a place to work. If I had to be a staff room, it'd be kind of fun. So then, let's see, next door. Yeah, that was the vet facility. And then, does the coordinate actually show it now? I don't believe so. Yeah, it's still just a blank box. But that's the least exciting of them. Almost least exciting, I guess. The auction house is probably about as exciting too. Yeah, it's a big empty box. There we go. So we've got an animal who's past his quarantine, he's ready to leave. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to pick him up and get him to move to the facility. So we're going to zip on over and we're going to ask the vet to put him in here. And I clicked the wrong one. There we go. So let's just watch that happen and then we'll pause again. So you see him keep running around the room. then I'll come back out the box. There we go. I played this game before, but mostly in the career scenarios. So I've not actually done it as a franchise zoo. And so basically you've got a business that you can run. So I've done a bunch of the scenarios. The scenarios, basically you've got challenges you need to meet. Let's see, what time is it here? We are looking at... Okay, so at the top of the hour, what I will probably do is switch over to taking a tour through some of the scenario zoos that I completed and saved, just so you guys can get a better look at the game and see what things are looking like when they get a little further on, and what sort of progress or what sort of areas and challenges you get to deal with. So if we click on the animal once he's in here, I pause the game again just so that he doesn't run off or get hungry or whatever. You can learn a lot about him. So right now he's over 6%. Enrichment, unfortunately, we won't be able to do a whole lot about right now because we haven't done any research. So we've got food enrichment and toy enrichment. So he's going to talk about because that won't be able to help. But his habitat here, it's clean. So there's something wrong with the terrain. He doesn't like that. And then we've got some other characters. So let's go to the terrain and see what his challenges are. Okay, so it's got way too much long grass. We're at 99, and way too much short grass. So if I go down to the terrain button here, they actually give us a terrain painter we can work with. And he wants more short grass, but does not like the long grass. So let's try. It's pretty big, but it'll probably work for what we're looking for. So then I just paint in shorter grass. As we go, the meters showing how much grass is in the band will change. So we're getting up to 5% short grass, 95% long grass. But he apparently really does not like long grass. Got a little bit of painting to do here. You can see below, there's two other items. I'll just pull this one down. So, you can see, we talked about from the Zugia that they only needed 615 square meters, and they had 2 of them. So, I mean, I'm starting out with a really large pen, but the links don't need that much space later on, and we have a reason to cut it back, we can. The other thing we can always do is move some of the pieces in here, and then separate the pen out into smaller ones for other creatures. When you do something like that, though, you do need separate entrances from each of the rings. Okay, so he's here. I'm just going to zoom and see if anything looks really strange. Most of the viewing area we'll see has got the right amount. Okay, so he's not too upset. Sand's okay, rock's okay. So for the creatures that have snow, it's grayed out because he can tolerate snow, but right now there isn't any, so it's at 0. Yeah, it's not a huge number. Okay, so if it actually does start to snow and get cool enough for snow to hang around as part of the environment, then what will happen is that this meter can change as well and let you know if there's too much, and then you need to put in heaters. So we looked at the terrain, but we also need to look at the environment. So every animal needs a certain amount of coverage, which is usually covered off by some of their shelter. But in this case, coverage actually means they're talking about plants. So if I take a look, scroll down here, the plants in the habitat, these trees, he does not like that. We had another one in here, and I absentmindedly took that one out. So the X's, and when they're red, the species definitely does not like that set of plants. So what we can actually do is we'll take these 2 out. Okay. And likes the plants, but there's not enough coverage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the Nature tab at the bottom here. And we can actually click on the different biomes, as well as the continents, is to force in the filters, and that will show us some of the stuff we can use. So let's take a quick look at the trees and see what we've got. There's a lot of trees and bushes in here. Let's see, lakes. Apparently they like bamboo, which is not something I was aware of. But I'm going to start with a fairly large pine tree. Wow, that sucker's huge. Maybe pick something a little bit smaller. Yeah, that might look a little better compared to his size. Now, I often try to not repeat the trees because you get a coverage percentage, but when you have a lot of trees that are the same, your coverage percentage doesn't climb very quickly. But this one seems to need a fair amount of coverage, so let's try something else. Alpine currants. Ooh, those look pretty cool. Bush? Pretty small. It says it's big, but I don't think it is. What about... Let's go random. Baobabs. Ooh, nice. A little bit... They're the cheapest of that style of tree, so let's just throw one right in the middle and see what we get for coverage. That'll only give us 2%. Okay. What about a beech tree? Wow. Okay, so I'm going to take that baobab, and it looked okay, but it's not my... Let's take this beech out. Sorry, baobab. Not a huge fan of you. Okay, thanks. Where'd you go? And back to environment. So let's go back. I'm liking that beech tree. 160, a little pricey. How... Beech sapling, beech tree. The smaller one, how about medium size? There we go. So how much coverage do we get off that? 2%. Okay. We're going to need quite a lot of coverage for this guy. That big tree was just a little too big. So we can also throw in some dead stuff. It does actually count towards the coverage. Not a huge fan of that sort of thing myself, but let's see what else we got. For some reason that's under the tree category. I don't quite understand why. Oh, I see plants versus rocks versus... Okay, it's not just trees. And let's ash trees. Let's just see what goes on here. It's not a very realistic biome. I'm just trying to make the cat happy, and then we can move on. So what else have we got? It's big. Let's go with that alpine currant after all. So let's throw a few around his water hole, maybe. They don't, unfortunately, let you paint, per se. It's a whole lot of individual clicking. So, you can... Got 10% there. So I added a bunch, but that still didn't seem to help, even though we've got 4 of those. Okay, let's see if we can find something else that's large and covering. Reeds, no. Reeds look dumb. Oak tree? Cork oak. Didn't change anything. Okay, that didn't help. Let's take that one out. Have an ash. We've got cherry blossoms. Sure. Let's see. Is a big one too big? No. Okay. That didn't help at all either. Okay, so he's gonna want something else. Let's try... Moss on a rock. Sure. Oh, that doesn't do much either. Well, you can keep that one. So we may have to come back to that one, because I'm not quite sure what I'm missing that's obvious here. That bovine? You can have that one. The palm trees. Okay, sure, why not? It's a zoo, we can do what we like, no? Any case, rather than spending a ton of time on trees and rocks and things, we have Stubbook, which sounds like he's a good ways from his elderly point, so we're okay. And we see who his parents are. The zoo does actually keep track of that, and they don't like you to have inbreeding. His social level is okay, but I mean, we can afford to have another one in here. Let's see, terrain, we're still okay. Overview, well, okay, so his welfare should climb. Our shelter's good enough, it's not great. And so before any guests can come in, we need to change up the paths so they can actually go and see. Let's try something a little different. How about for dark. I'm going to take this one out. I know. And switch it to 6 meters wide. Let's go 3 dark. And why it's going to be a staff path doesn't make any sense. Odd. Don't get your path though. It's purple and the path when you can't go where you want to go, and so I'm not quite sure why this staff pathing is doing that. You just take this out. Oh, I see what comes out here. Here. The game's pathing system can be a little ridiculous sometimes. I'm never quite sure why it does what it does. It seems to want to map it to things quite frequently. Day? Try that. And then I just didn't want to click it. Okay. No? You're fine. Either way. Path, we need to reconnect this path. Can you not read? Fine, that one works. We can actually get to where we need to go. Off our path. So I get that. I'm gonna get that a little bit off camera. Odd. It's gonna go that way when I get right there. It doesn't connect to anything else. Who knows? Today path, please. Sure, I'll take that. So go back to the people paths and see if you get this one. Go ahead and put it on. People are slobs in this game. They will throw trash all over the place and leave a mess. So when we build paths, it's best. Let's just take this piece out. It's best to add such as trash cans because they will make a huge mess all over the place. But we also need to have that. We need media devices. There we go. So we actually also need to have ourselves some education boards so that when people come by and see the animals, then we know. Or they know what they are. Okay, so let's start by getting in. Let's start with one of these education board sets. Good. Now, the other challenge with these things, unfortunately, is you need to have power. Okay? And that's a bit of a pain on this game because we haven't added it yet. So before I get myself distracted, click this board. So it's going to show the educational content and we can choose links. The nice part about it is when you have a whole bunch of animals in your game, you don't have to go searching through the list. By default, it will actually put the most recent one up top. No, sorry, the nearest to where you are up top. But we have this heat map down on the bottom. If I click on that, to power, we will see that, oh, we're getting lucky. There is successfully powered. Because we're beating off of the power from the front gate that they give you to start with, which is a good news because I don't have to worry about adding a power station at this point in time. I mean, Transformers offer they cost 500, and I know we have 15 or nearly 16,000. But the problem with Transformers is there is a negative impact on guests, and you'll see from these red circles here, the guests really don't like seeing behind-the-scenes facilities. To see a range around the outside, and that's how far out it bothers guests. So if guests are inside that bubble, they start to complain. If they're outside that bubble, then they're okay. You will get bubbles from the mess that they leave, things like trash. So for example, trash cans do actually, trash on the ground do actually negatively impact the guests. So having a trash can itself nearby is not a bad idea at any time. Let's throw one in. They're on their way out. That's right. Okay. And we might want another one down, say about there. Yeah, that'll work. Go on this side. So we can't see here. I'll turn this heat map off. Is if you get too far away from the path, your object will turn red and you can't actually place it. But if you're right next to the path or on the path, then you can. Okay, and another thing to keep in mind when you're doing games like this, or not games like this, but when you're building a zoo, is you're going to need guest facilities. We need to have them pay us. So we have a couple of options. You have like ATMs when they need money for their vending machines, but also donation bins. Donation bins are huge in this game. If the guests visiting like what they see, then they will donate to help help with the upkeep of that animal. And so donation bins, having lots and lots of them, are great. Once you've got visitors visiting, when you click on any one particular donation bin, it'll tell you how much the last donation was, the average donation, largest, and in your donations box you get to see sort of an overall view of how much people are actually paying. So let's see if we can get anybody in to come and visit this poor lynx. It is a bit of a sad zoo, so we probably won't have much happening. Oh, I can hear the staff. There we go. There's some guests. Here's the habitat due to my zone. Oh, zone setup. Okay. Work zone setup. That's interesting. They actually care. Looks to me like they can reach them just fine. It's not going in. Okay. So I'm just going to pause this for a quick second here. And please, where are we? Oh, just at the top of the hour. So I'll quickly go through the work zone, get that part fixed, and then we'll switch over to another zoo so you guys can have a better look at what is all involved in this game. So, Habitat 1, if we go down to zoos, and take a look at the, I believe, it's under facilities. Nope. Hut, open and closed. Definitely worth poking around. I often forget what I'm up to. That one. Okay, so I'm going to staff. And we don't have any work zones. So I need to create a work zone. Now, when I start out, I often just throw everything in the same work zone, and then I can actually change it out later. Or if I have a big plan of what I'm going to be doing, then I can add it to specific work zones. So we add basically everything that's red is not currently in a work zone. And that means either the staff cannot access it or they're floating between. I've discovered if you don't put it in a work zone, sometimes it lets everybody use it. Other times it means that nobody can use it. So I don't know why. It seems to be the flavor of the update as to whether or not people can actually use it. Like Minecraft, this one has its own bugs from time to time. Work zone 1. I'm not going to rename it at this point. We can. But the reason I have not renamed the work zone is because it's just our starting everything work zone. Okay, I should get rid of... Right. Let's see, what have we got? Mechanic cannot reach the habitat. Oh, I see. Okay, so we've got a problem with the paths. I will take care of that off camera because that's not something we need to fuss with today. The paths are being a little bit of a janky mess. But let's see if we can head out of this particular zoo. Let's see. We're going to exit to the main menu. Yes. A tour! So what I'm going to do with the tour is I'm actually going to start in career order that I had in the way that I had to do them. It just makes it easy for me to access that way. So when you start with a career, you're asked to do levels of goals to reach the Bronze Star, Silver Star, Gold, and once you've reached them, you actually get little colored statues where the zoo is based, so what part of the world. Now this one up here, I have not completed that one yet, I think. When was that? That was... Okay, yeah. So that one is actually new from down in the Arctic Cool. I have not actually done that scenario yet. So it's unlocked, but that's why I've got a critter on there, but I haven't actually done that one. So that's with the Goodwin house. I'm just going to resume it, because even though it's completed, it gives us a good chance to putter around inside and you'll see what's going on. The career stuff is definitely, in essence, the tutorial, and lets you learn how things work and how things function and how to build the various pieces of a zoo. Okay, come on, zoo. And one of the things that happens as part of the career tutorial is you do get voiced characters. So there's a bit of a loose thread for storyline that goes on during the career section. First element you meet is a gentleman by the name of Bernie Goodwin, and he owns the zoo and the zoo franchise that you're being employed by. And then he has a main keeper who is going to be helping you learn the ropes, so to speak. Interesting. Come on, computer, please load. So Bernie has a zoo that started around his house, and one of the things that you learn through the scenario series is that Bernie's daughter, Emma, was at that point, I think, that she starts out being in college or something, but she does not have an interest in taking over his zoo business, which is part of why he's hiring you. So we're just here for some tours because we've already completed this one. And I'll leave it running. So you can see we've got the visitors. It's a little pokey in looking at things, but so for example, the first thing we can see as a visitor is when you go in the game, you do see these various signs. So that's actually accurate from what I've been able to determine with regards to their endangered status. And if I go back up here, so I mean, tortoises, not super duper exciting, but they do crawl around, that sort of thing. So we're getting notices in the corner of things that have happened. Very frequently it'll be something like your peafowl or peacocks and peahens have had little ones. If you click on an animal, you can actually, let's go to one a little more interesting than peafowl. How about, let's go over there. So you can jump around via the menus, or you can also take a look at your animals you want to see. So for example, if I was to double click on this zebra, you see you're watching them. Not around very much. If I click on the keeper, maybe. There we go. So they're a little harder to follow. But you can, in the zebra and giraffe pen, okay. But you can actually follow them. Nobody's moving around much today. Okay. Are you gonna run? If we double click on the animal, or even single click, and then click on the little camera icon in the bottom, we can literally follow them around. So when they move, our camera moves. Yep, and they run and they play and they're cute and all that jazz. I mean, there's this cinematic look, which works well. And then, of course, with the orbit, they could actually zoom around them. Take a look at what they're up to. Let's see if we can find something else interesting in this zoo. What have we got for animals? So if you go in here, when you take a look at the zoo overview, one of the things it'll tell you is, in this center section, this is the animal that is the most popular, most appealing to the guests. And there's lots of information about how your zoo functions, and if you're in the red or in the black, and you can change ticket prices and so on. So if we take a look at just the animals for today, we will, let's see that. How about, let's check out, we see Aswad the elephant. So here we are in the elephant pen, and there's default named Aswad, and you can see that they've got water and lots of food and things to play with. Like, they will actually push the balls around. You can see them do that. You can see them knock over the little pin thing. Oh, Peter's animal has escaped. Okay, what have we got escaped? What is it? Escaped animal is one I can't even bother pronouncing. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get the vet, call the vet, and let's see if we can locate the vet. Assigned. Okay. Yes. I've been clicking this one to all said vet. Let's go back to the animal. As you can see, it does scare the guests. They freak out because they don't want to be eaten. So the vet's on their way. Now I can actually spend the money to urgently capture it, and it'll stick it in a box, but the vet will actually use a trank gun and then just box the animal up after it's tranquilized. Now let's see where the animal belongs. I want the habitat. Where should that one be? Snow leopard, okay. Let's go over there. Close that one. So this leopard habitat, if I was to click on the habitat outside, their test is in good condition, but I'm looking at this and I'm not seeing anything that is guaranteeing it's non-climbable. I have suspicion that the animal may have climbed up the backside here somewhere. Where do they get out? They've been brought back. Actually, I don't see anything that implies that they should have got out. So I'm going to let that one go and not worry about it. But now we've seen... So this is the sort of thing you get to start with. If this one was fairly complete, fairly pre-built, you can actually do things like ride on the train. So if we were to go in the camera, we can sit in the back. Point of interest, we can actually sit in the seat right in the front and see what's going on there. Or we can give it a test. Let's see, let's do a cinematic view. Not much useful there. But they're pointing at things they want to see. If we go on that side, ride facing, but it's triggering on the front of the... So we'll get out of the car for now. Yeah, there's a bunch of different views you can choose, which is kind of handy. So this is nice to be in the front, and you can actually ride the whole ride with everybody. So it's a bit of a quick tour, not a great tour. So we can always go back to other pieces that I've flown by too quickly. But that's the sort of thing you get for scenario 1. Now I'm not going to take you through all of them. I'll jump to a couple of other short pieces. And that way we can see a little bit more of what's happening in the other zoos. Exit to main menu. I don't really care. Oops. So next one I'm going to take you to is actually one of the more challenging zoos. Hi, Kitty Bee Bear. Welcome aboard. So one of the zoos I'm going to head to is one of the other scenarios where, after earning Goodwin, as you hired and goes through a couple of more zoos, then unfortunately he vanishes. They don't tell you a whole lot about why he vanished, but he... Is this the one? No, so... Pandas. Okay, we will definitely come back to the pandas. That one was also slightly pre-built. But anyways, after, when we got down to probably about the safari park? No. Okay, it is. So just after the safari park, which portions of the safari park are built for you, our wonderful person Goodwin vanishes. The resulting effect is he was declared dead, and that was not a spoiler, that's a big deal, but when you get Myers Lake, what happens next is the zoos get sold to a really scummy, sleazy, terrible new investor owner. He has made his reputation terrible and has decided that he's going to try and get you to clean up his reputation by making everything look good. But the thing is, he buys zoos and makes you fix them. So on the bright side, the Myers Lake Zoo, while it's partially built for you, it's actually not in horrible shape. You can actually do quite a lot with it. So what I'm going to hop into that actually shows you a bit more of the mess is then he picked up one where I believe it's set in India, where he's actually turned it into, or it was a casino. Then he got in trouble for it being a casino, so he sends you in to help him complete making it into a zoo. So, Kitty Bee Bear, I see you said you've got in playing into career mode. How far are you in there right now? I'm in the one just after the casino, and it's one where you get to kind of start from scratch, but that one's a very unique one because you have a limited amount of space. You're stuck in a quarry that has a lot. The quarry one. That's where I'm stuck right now. The quarry one is interesting because it has a feature where you actually need to remove barrels of toxic waste from the bottom of the quarry. Yeah, that was not great. I had a quarry scenario going that was halfway through, but unfortunately for some reason my game did something weird in such a way that I couldn't get any visitors to show up, so I had to give up on that one, start over. So just for the purposes of a tour, so we've got this location was a casino, and you'll see that there's bits and pieces in some of the storage zones. I think I cleaned most of it out, but you'll see some of the places that would have been shops, or you could easily picture having the one-armed bandit slot machines in there. And apparently the local authorities were not too impressed. So you can see there's lighting that used to be decorative. And you to move through these different levels, the bronze, the silver, and the gold. And as you reach each one of them, it checks off and goes green. Now, one of the challenges this zoo had initially was also that it kept repeatedly having blackouts of energy. And part of the reason for that, well, it was twofold, is one, that a lot of the pens were being held together in places where, like this corner you can see here with the glass. A lot of those were actually being held together with electric fencing. So they didn't have enough power in the first place to be able to cover that. And in the second place, that they were drawing too much. Like the electric fence just draws way too much power. So one of the goals you're getting on your list, I believe it's closer to the gold end. Where is it here? Yeah, so you have to switch over and power everything is zoo renewable energy. So you need a lot. But one of the first steps I took once I realized that was going to be on my list was that where's this antelope? There we go. So this is a young antelope and it's getting a little bit older. Let's watch that for a minute. So one of the challenges that we had was to make it all renewable energy. When I saw that in the list and then discovered that some of the pleased to meet you, Automacer. Go ahead and lurk, enjoy, have some fun. So one of the first things I did was run through and take a look at all the different types of animals we have and see what their barrier requirements were in terms of height and materials, and that allowed me to swap a lot of them out from non-electric versions, and thereby saving a good amount of draw on animals. You don't appear to be maturing. Okay. Out of your camera. Oh, you're hungry. Well, not good. Where is your food? So when you see something like this, it comes up with a concern, then you can usually try and deal with that type of concern if you figure out where their food trays are. So we click on the food tray. Then you can actually say, Keeper, please hurry up. And I'm also going to need one to clean up. Now, when you see messes, it actually looks kind of funny to have a keeper come in and do a cleanup, because the keepers, when they come through, they actually look like they have leaf blowers, and they literally just suck up the dung. It's kind of amusing to watch, because if you zoom in close, it goes and actually sucks right up into the machine. Okay, we've had a disease cleanliness. It's probably because somebody has kicked the bucket. This is right. Oh, this is one of the challenges you also get, is that you can end up with protesters. Yeah, protesters are not fun. Basically, you don't see them too much at the moment. So I don't see them. However, the people are always a challenge. They're always dying. And then this one in the case we have an antelope that died. So I'm not quite sure why the peafowl are upsetting people. Oh, they're dehydrated. Okay. So this one they've got a water bowl. Oh, that's food bowl. Sorry, wrong one. That is. Here's their water bowl. So it has not actually been filled in forever. So let's throw a keeper in there. And the animal that has died, they actually died of old age. Well, that's good to know, because they died of disease. But if we leave them there, they will die of disease. Now, I'm going to call the vet, and the vet will come and actually take that animal away. But it does affect what guests think of things. So let's just take a look at negative impact on guests. So we can see we've got a wind turbine here. We've got a water purification system, I think, over there. Let's see what we've got going on here. Okay. So we've got all sorts of negative things that can affect them, and most of these are staff facilities and things behind the scenes that run the system, like wind turbines. Protesters, there they are. So you can see, turn this off again. The protesters are wandering around with signs. And have their own language in this game. And they're protesting the peafowl, but they don't really say low welfare. Because they're thirsty. Okay. So if I want the protesters to go away, I need to solve that thirst problem. So I'm going to go back to look at that peafowl's habitat. Yeah. And probably, in this case, I'm just going to pause the game briefly. I'm going to delete their budget. So I've got the funds to handle this, and I'm going to swap it out. And swap it out for because that does not need to have a staffer come and fill it. Okay, let's play again. You can actually see that the pipe is dripping a little bit, and it's filling full of water. So that was the issue by the investors. Then that should come to see what else we got on. Good impacts? Okay. So we got buildings, we got protesters. One of the protesters going, hey, what are protesting now? Okay, you don't need protest anymore. So what we're going to do is see if that. Oh. Why are they upset? Interesting. Little bond, we want you to go away. Yes. Okay. So one we can do once we've got protesters, we can actually find. Do we have any? We can find this security guard. Let's talk to Carol. Where are you, Carol? Okay, and you can actually, this is kind of funny, but this one here, it's highlighted, that is Carol, our security guard. What I'm going to do, Carol, is I'm going to pause it. I'm actually going to grab Carol. Come on, you. Oh, maybe. Wandering. Okay, Carol, what am I going to do with you? Actually, I'm not sorry, I can afford it. So let's go find the protesters again. Where's those people? It's easy because they didn't have enough water. And they're thirsty. Well, you're going to be. Now let's take a quick look at the water here and see if the water down at the bottom was actually healthy or not. Because, well, it's blue, so that's good news. If it was red, then it would not have been covered by the water purification system, which we see marked over the corner in yellow. The good news, it wasn't that they were drinking dirty water from down there. But it is also interesting that they couldn't drink water down there. So it might be something to consider. Because they've got... Ooh, my keeper, that's what I want. That gives the vet coming. Don't worry about it. So, in any case, normally when it will take a little time, when your zoo has the protesters, then they will protest conditions. Now, people tend to drop a lot. Cleanliness of the habitat is often a challenge. That was nutrition. Yeah, so cleanliness is often a challenge with people. So this particular zoo was a bit annoying because it felt like every 10 minutes I was turning around and putting more keepers involved. And more, come clean up, come clean up. So it was kind of fun to get out of this one. But that's the sort of challenge you start with. Another one they had was in this pen here, we've got, I believe, I've got you today. Oh yeah, mandrills, okay. So we have mandrills in there, and both, what am I seeing? Mandrills on that side, and I think we have more on this side. Yeah, okay, we do. So one of their problems initially was that they actually had not enough space. And the space they did have didn't have any climbing equipment. In spite of the scenery appearing to have some, that doesn't qualify with regards to what the mandrills can actually use for climbing on. When you look at the heat map, you can actually also take a look at the animals. There's their general welfare, so this guy is green. But we can take a look at their habitat. And it shows you in blue here the traversable area. So that traversable area is all they're going to count when it talks about how much space the animal needs for their welfare to stay green. Oh, thanks for head up on the sound. It could be the sound. It could also be me jumping ahead when I get distracted by something. So I will definitely take a look at that. This game is a little bit more intense on the CPU, but we look like we should only be about sub 20%, so we're going okay there. Okay, so you can see that's the traversable area, and then if we're looking at things like how much shelter the animal has, so you can see they can hide under platforms and they can hide under bridges, but when we started, it didn't have the ability to right through the other side of the habitat, and there's a bunch of junk in the middle. So I had to clean out a lot of that junk in order to get the two sections to connect, and then the traversable area was more improved. And habitat cleanliness, you can see on, if I go on this side, the red circles are where they're not as clean as they could be. So the pea fellow will probably have a whole ton of red circles if I was to look at them right now. Oh, good. We can see that the protesters have gone away. And this one, keep here. The Cleanliness is at issue. So what we're going to do is they've got a keeper assigned, but the keeper's just not coming quick enough. So we're going to locate that keeper, get them nearby, and ask them to speed up. Here they come. Let's turn off this one, and that one. Here comes the keeper. And we're going to have to clean up the...
Get up!
No, someone needs a keeper habitat. Yes, that's you, Barry. And apparently Gary doesn't think he's doing anything, which is not it. Come on, you. Keeper is where we're going. I think I should go to get a clean the pen. Never really know with these guys. Leave your tape here, and you can watch them a little bit, you know, for bits and giggles, but their nutrition's a bit low, and I'm just kind of curious why that would be. Nourishment, last meal quality. Okay, so they're hungry. There is their tray. It's not their tray. Ah, it's under the shelter, okay. That's empty. So if I was to be playing this zoo, rather than just simply giving you a tour, then I would actually... We've already got a keeper assigned. Okay, so hopefully they'll get this filled up pretty quickly. But I'd actually be changing all the water trays out for the pumps. And I would be changing out the food trays, possibly for something a little bit larger. So, let's see. One of the more popular zoos, this was a bit more of a challenge, but one of the more popular zoos to play was actually the Asian-themed zoo that has pandas. It had a couple of unique features, so I'm just going to hop over there real quick. And next to the main menu. It's fine. So for those of you that are familiar with some of the other games I play, such as Minecraft, which actually I do play a lot of, Minecraft has its pandas, and they come in multiple varieties. We've got ones with brown coloring on them. We've got your more common black coloring. We've got some that exhibit behaviors such as rolling or climbing. And they have some that are more snotty-nosed varieties. And that literally does have a drip nose. So they have their own little set of behaviors, and they eat, and they play, but of course they don't make messes. So it's one of my favorite things after spending some time in Minecraft is actually to put on one of the sandbox zoos where nothing can go wrong in Planet Zoo. I've actually just opened one up as a sandbox from time to time that I actually picked as a scenario, as a career level. I just spent some time purely watching the animals. And my favorite to return to time and time again, just as background, is the panda-themed zoo. And part of the reason that I like the panda-themed zoo is that they have a bit of fun behavior. I mean, they don't do much. Real-life pandas don't do much either. But it's kind of fun to see these guys crawling around. And every once in a while when they do breed and have baby pandas, those are so incredibly cute. So the plan for when I play Planet Zoo on whatever Wednesdays, it won't be every week, but it'll probably be a few more weeks. And I'm going to get back into the scenarios, or the career mode. Either that, or I'll be playing the franchise that we started this morning. And the goal here is, of course, to expand the learning, but also to make a bit more progress in the career stuff, because it will unlock access to a lot more of the other pieces. It had occurred to me while in the loading screen this morning. Oh, I'm just seeing. I think I'm picking up game sounds. We'll have to see. It occurred to me on the loading screen this morning that if I go to a sandbox zoo, then we won't necessarily have as much trouble with not having access to some of the pre-builts and prefab items. So this one we had to be a little bit creative and try and hide the water treatment center in the zoo. It's sort of obvious to our eyes, but thankfully it's far enough away from the main paths that the visitors don't care. So what I'm actually looking for. So in this zoo, people come in the front and then they go for a walk either to the right or to the left. But the main attraction was the pandas. We have this great big pagoda-esque. And ooh, there we go. And we have one of the babies. Now, one of the few drawbacks to this particular zoo was the fact that it rains. And it rains, and it rains tomorrow. It's kind of frustrating. There's our little baby panda. Who's just gonna get sat on? Well, maybe not. Maybe not today. Yep, so they're gonna just to sit there. But they are darling cute. And apparently they don't want me to see their face. No. But as we get our zoos built, and when we start dealing with our career modes, I will be attempting to name animals after some of the people following, if you're interested in that sort of thing. It's kind of fun. Now, I will also keep track of, in that case, if we have animals that unfortunately die of old age or some other unfortunate reason. If that creature has been named after one of the followers, then that follower will get a freebie chance to pick a new creature. So that we'll keep track of that as we go. At this point in the game, I don't have, or in the streaming world, I don't have a whole ton of followers, so I don't think worrying about keeping track of them will be too difficult. So yeah, this little guy is darn cute and runs around. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to simply throw him stuff to trigger particular behaviors. Watch them play, but they do run around a fair bit. Can't wait. Yeah, the only reservation I have is there are certain ones that I know I'm going to have at least one named after people who are not currently followers, but just more of in honor of them for experiences I've had or things I've learned from them. For example, there will probably be one llama at some point and one panda that it will be named after a Spitfire. Then there'll be some silly little ones, like if we end up with like a mountain goat or a doll sheep, then I owe one to my daughter Sheep Queen. That's just the usual deal. Now, I haven't figured out how to use it yet, but as we take a look in, they can go underneath the building into sort of almost a den of sorts, and one of the options in the game I haven't figured out yet how to use and still just have to look up is you can actually get in-den cameras. So you can put them in and then project what's going on inside the camera onto a screen on the outside so that the visitors can see what's going on. And that those cameras are just something I've yet to learn, because it wasn't something that was critical to any of the scenarios I was in for the career mode. So even the little ones can help us. I'm just going to quick. Even the little ones can help us learn what they need and what their terrain is like. So, for example, in this area, there's too much long grass. So if I was to do this up properly, I would take the terrain monitor like we did earlier and take out a fair amount of this long grass, particularly in here. So they like the short grass, they do not like the long grass. I have to zoom across to the side. Now, as far as I know, this game is only available on PC. I don't know if it's playable on Mac. It's definitely one of the Steam games. And I will also note, for interest's sake, that the what's the word? The trailers for these games are actually fairly well done and fairly cinematic. But the best part of the got way out of the pen. Best part about trailers is that they actually do show relatively accurate gameplay, whereas a lot of other trailers do not. Different games. Let's go back in. So you can see that there's the ability to go in and out of terrain. However, oops, what did I do here? There we go. However, you can also turn on and turn off object collision. So I actually could have prevented myself from going through the building wall like that. Are we almost done? There we go. Okay. That must have totally derailed. That wasn't where I was going at all. But in any case, you can see that we've got a lot of lines. Oh, on the trailers, that's what it was. I actually like the look of the trailers. So if one sees clips of trailers or gameplay on the net, they're not actually done commercially in a way that a lot of other games do, where a cinema game has been played. Eating time, yay! Let's go see what we've got. Welcome aboard, Ross. Glad to see you. So, as we're getting a little closer to the end for today, wanted to just finish up with one of the more popular zoos, but to note quickly that Wednesdays will be my whatever Wednesday. It's the day that I will not be playing Minecraft. And so for a while we'll be doing Planet Zoo, and possibly heading back to the career mode. We'll see if I can get some of the nitty-gritty, grindy stuff done in the next one and make sure that the visitors are actually showing up before we get too far in it. But that's one of the things we'll be doing in there, and maybe we might even actually switch over to a sandbox zoo that I can get started rather than the franchise zoo, because then we can explore some more of the animals. A lot of it in this early experience for me is I have not set up a whole bunch of plans yet for what we're going to be doing in any particular game. So if there's something that you read about or hear about that you would like to see me attempt to tackle, feel free to drop me a note, either in stream, or you can find me hiding on Gmail at delenn.russell@gmail.com, or just delenrussell@gmail.com. It's the same names you see above for both YouTube and Twitch. There actually is an underscore in the YouTube one. It just isn't showing in my overlay at the moment. Gotta fix that. The other place you find me hiding is I tend to hang out on the Discord of Dadcraft73. So that's a great place to find me if you need to get a hold of me or leave messages. I've only been doing some streaming since the very tail end of November for test streams, and so I haven't yet got my own little hovel on the net. But we'll see where things go. Easily distractible mid-sentence, so if I forget something or seem to not make a whole lot of sense, feel free to call me on it, and that's always a good place to be, is to call me on things. Apparently our little guy was nice and hungry because he wants more from the other tray. Okay, so anyways, the schedule coming up will be Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 12, so 10 a.m. to noon Mountain Time, so that's GMT -7. Those 2 days will be Minecraft Java from Dadcraft73's patron Java Minecraft server. And then on Wednesdays, we're going to continue calling it Whatever Wednesday. And hopefully most of these streams will be available as video on demand after the fact. Because I try to keep the stream fairly family friendly, if the content has drifted during maybe a collab or a question or comment has come up and I've said something that I'm not comfortable with, then the video on demand may be delayed as I try to clean that up and then post it back up again. there's our family, and yeah. Pandas do what pandas do, and at some point I'll have to call a keeper for that one. So yeah, that's my regular schedule, basically Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 10 a.m. to noon Mountain Time. Other games you may see aside from this one is I'm looking at starting a new city in Cities Skylines. So that'll be one of the options we can play. Another thing I'm looking at kicking into would be one of the Myst series games. So Myst, Riven, Exile, and so on. And part of the plan with that one is that I've actually never completed the series. I own them all. I've owned them for years. But I only got through the first hour of gameplay for Myst 4 and didn't end up actually getting completed on that one. So I wanted to do that at some point. I've also looked at playing a little bit of Sims 4. I don't have all the expansion packs for that, but there's definitely enough content to play a little bit of that. So that's an option for whatever Wednesdays. There's a few other ones too, like my kids have said that they wanted to see me play a little bit of Scrap Mechanic. They saw Dadcraft play some of that last year and got hooked. So we bought it and they've got it, but it's bought on my account, so they said they want to see me play it. I might kick into a little bit of Valheim. I'm not as thrilled about that one, but mostly Minecraft is because I've got some ideas this season on what to build. And I actually thought about building a zoo in Minecraft, but then I changed my mind because I figured that I'll keep the zoo to the zoo, if that makes any sense. Okay, so while we're here, that was the pandas. Let's see if we can find somebody else. Might be interesting to watch us for the last few minutes here. Thank you. Where are you? Oh, right. Okay, so we'll start with the animals and habitats. What have we got? Pandas. Crocodiles. Yeah, crocodiles don't really do much. Pangolins, they don't do much. Let's go see the flamingos. Why not? Okay, flamingos. There we are. So you can see that they've even added a swimming mechanic so that flamingos can fill out in the water. Here's an example earlier of when you step in here, you can place it, and then when you click on it, you actually have the ability to change the slider around to what level you would like it to be. And the range here actually talks about how far it reaches. So when there's more than one in a habitat, there's a reason for why it's spaced in that way. I tend to like to try and put the range as large as I can, but there are times that you definitely don't have a reason to do so. For example, if I want one where I need the temperature kicked up and we're in a country where it's actually naturally warm through part of the year, then I don't really want the heaters to reach outside the side of the pen. This crazy contraption is actually a forage box. So I don't want to lie in the Flamingo pen that was there when I started the game. There was no reason to move it. In any case, it's the type of thing where the animals will go in and they'll stick their heads in and dig around. So they do have some enrichment for that. Wonder why they put that in here. In any case, no counting for taste. Okay, what have we got on this side? So here's some flamingos. You can see they come changing in real life, which is actually reflected fairly well in the game. Is that the younger ones haven't. The part of the reason they're darker actually has to do with the fact that they haven't had enough chance to consume a ton of seafood yet. The more seafood that the birds eat, particularly pink-based ones like shrimps and so forth, the more pink their feathers will be. I actually live in a city that has its own zoo, and we do have flamingos. And it's kind of interesting to see because sometimes when you can also see the price of seafood reflected in the birds after a few months. So for example, when shipping is challenging with COVID, and they can't necessarily get as much of the red shrimps that they would like to have for the birds, then where am I here? then one of the effects you'll see is that this coloring that's quite pronounced on their wings down here. Sometimes it'll even be through the other part of foliage, or their feathers. I'm thinking about being stuck in the tree foliage. You'll see that coloring will actually lighten up as they get given other things such as fish. So yeah, and I seem to be able to have a great habit today of finding birds in the midst of doing their business. We're good at that today. Okay, let's find somebody else. Okay, I was mentioning earlier another item. This is a herbal scent marker. Okay, and you'll see that it can, for different animals, you'll be able to see what sort of rating that you can get for it. So it's a 50 points encouragement. When you go into a creature's habitat and you're looking at, let's pick an animal here. Oh, there's the people. Okay, if you go into the creature's habitat and we're looking at the enrichment tab. So the scent markers go under the herb scents, under the species toys, and you'll see a requirement in here of how much they have for toy enrichment, how much they require. And this one is a good because they've got different items. If I was to throw in another herb scent marker, we may not get 50 out of it because it's not unique to the game. Or not unique to them. But in terms of food enrichment, they have a forage pool, it looks like, but there's not much there. So let's just see if I happen to have anything else handy for them. Thunder food. Oh, we've got Flamingos. Spell. Mingle. At this point, we only know about the forage pool, which they already do have one of. So if I was to want to increase the food enrichment score for these animals, I would actually need to assign a vet to the research center. Have them look into that. I'll just show you really quickly what that looks like, because we're just about done for this evening, this morning's episode. But when you look at the facilities, you've got vet research down here on the left-hand side. So when I click on that, we'll see that we have 2 veterinarians hired, and these are all the possible creatures that they could be researching as well. If we scroll down to the bottom here, we'll see these red ones, which are the diseases that the animals could have. Okay, and when the animals often catch something, then you'll learn more about it. I guess not learn more about it. You can have the vet research into it, so that the animals who've had, say for example in this case, bordetelliosis. Yes, thank you. Because I researched that one, animals that catch that disease then can recover from it at the vet relatively quickly, and they will also be less likely to come down with it in future simply because the vets know more about what should be happening in the pen. Each level of having researched an animal will actually give you bonuses to work with for that animal. For example, let's take another look at the macaques here. So if I click on the macaques, you see that we've done 4 out of 6 levels, or no more. There's 4 levels of research have been done, and we were able at each level of research to learn something new. So this one we learned a new toy. This one we learned a new food enrichment, so that would be something like the foraging pool, for example, or as you can see in this shape, it might actually be a barrel that you can hide things in. You'll see signs down here. We get a bonus to education because we know something about them. So there's education boards about this animal will actually provide more bonus to your education score. And then fun facts are also helpful as well. Those can be used both for the education element as well as they're helpful to the staff who can give educational talks. Now, I haven't set one of those up yet in anything but a sandbox, so I'm not too familiar with the educational talks, but those fun facts do bonuses that way. And then breeding research here does help with things where like breeding your animals and having them be more successful in that way. So this zoo, we've got a 4-star, and you can see we've got 5 back here. 5 categories. So this particular one, if I wanted to boost that star rating up even further, get it closer to that 4.5, which is the lowest build marker, we can see marketing is incredibly low. So if I wanted to market them, then I could actually start some sort of campaign, such as cereal boxes or newspaper prints or radio ads. And that does help with the reputation of the zoo. But I mean, I'm more personally concerned with the smiley face because that's the happiness of people visiting the zoo and how much they're enjoying the zoo. And then each one of those we break down. But we'll see those pieces as we go along. There will be a more sensible method to the madness in what we tend to do in our zoos. As we wrap up the pandas. Let's exhibits before we go. So we've got land snails? No. Let's go to frogs. See if we can actually find a frog. Alright. So exhibits are quite small in things. And in the containers. These are an exhibit container. And you can see that they've got oh, well, thank you for following, Casey Grandma. So, they've got an information board just like the other ones. Now, this one should have... Do we have the animals in here? Yes, thoughts. Dog, where are you? Where are you? Antonio? Ah, there you go. So, let's see if we can find Antonio. You're not doing much. Okay, that was not so helpful. So we got Antonio, and then I think there was another one in there. Let's see if we can get my zoo's a little fussy today. There they are. Nice and small. And you can see that the pens are tiny, so I think I'm going to return, as I thought earlier, to the pandas just before we wrap it up here. We'll see. I didn't see a red panda today. Not quite the same as the giant pandas, but who do we have? Moles. Okay. Have 2 gangs? Interesting. I guess I need to... My gang and you, my friend, are going to be named... I'm creative, and let's go with... Oops. Make you Pang. Sounds like it belongs in this pen. Sure. Okay. So I want to join me this week. This is Whatever Wednesdays with Delenn Russell, and I'm glad to see that we have a few people on board. I haven't scared you all off yet. If there's anything in particular you would like to see or have questions, you can always tag me in the comments, in the Discord or by email, and I'll be around, I guess is probably the easiest way to put it. But do expect to see me again tomorrow morning. We'll be doing more of our library book build on Dadcraft73's Java patron server. And let's see if I can... There we go. And that's that for tomorrow, so that will be at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And next week we will be back with more of the Planet Zoo. Hopefully we'll be on and making more progress, probably in our sandbox zoo, just because then we can get more access to a lot of the pieces that I haven't yet unlocked in the other sections of the game. I'm wishing everybody a great day. Hope it treats you well, and we'll talk to each other soon. Bye for now.